In Eastern esoteric and occult traditions, there's this notion that a practitioner needs to routinely cultivate and strengthen personal chi or life force so that you have more power for, well, everything and anything else you want to do in your life. The kind of generic listing of things to do to cultivate your personal life force would be like qigong practices, routine meditation, and following TCM or traditional Chinese medicine guidelines for an optimized diet. Some people might throw in ancestor worship to know who you are and where you come from. And so this is sort of like that generic list of what to do to cultivate personal chi. This video is not a tutorial. It's not intended to be educational, which is why it's a Bell Chimes In. It's an opinion piece. It's about me, just me. This is all about me. Bell Chimes In is always just my opinion, my thoughts, my beliefs, my practices. First, there's kind of a big difference between what I know and what I actually do. Kind of like how I know eating French fries and chocolate chip cookies every other day is like super bad for you, but that's not going to stop me from doing it. I still eat a lot of French fries and cookies. So yeah, there's a bit of that going on. Fair disclaimer, right? When it comes to personal life force strength training, as in your life essence, the most important thing really boils down to knowing yourself. I don't think there's any other advice I can give besides that, really, because it all comes down to knowing your weaknesses and being self-aware. In Eastern holistic health practices, we do believe that your emotions, temperament, and personality traits are also tied to your physical health and physiological temperament. Like if you have a bad temper or have a very fiery personality, then you're more likely to have blood pressure issues in terms of your physical health, more susceptible to heart attacks in terms of your health history, more susceptible to strokes, migraines, nosebleeds, that kind of thing. If you're very indecisive, wishy-washy, very sensitive, or hypersensitive emotionally, you might be more susceptible to neurological issues, lightheadedness, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, dehydration, etc. Interesting note, acne is seen as a symptom of many, many different emotional and other internal physiological issues and even spiritual issues. So if you see acne, you can never just think one single root cause. Acne is a symptom of many, many very different disparate root causes, from a weaker sacral chakra, concerns in the internal organs in the lower part of your body, to emotional, potentially mental imbalances. Me personally, I think too fast, I think too much, my thoughts are always racing and racing in my head like a million thoughts per millisecond, so I have respiratory issues. I know that sounds irrational, crazy, and like just totally insane to anyone who doesn't grow up on traditional Chinese medicine. But yeah, because my thoughts are running all the time, I shoot my mouth too much and I talk and think too fast. So it's kind of like I'm running a marathon, right? And so you get out of breath when you physically run a marathon. If your thoughts and your speech is constantly racing, then you can get physiologically out of breath in a sense, so you're more likely than most people to get asthma and to have bronchial issues. And I do have asthma and bronchial issues. There's also a belief in polarity between your physical senses and your psychic senses. Again, allegedly, there's a superstitious belief that if your physical eyes are myopic, like you have bad eyesight, then your psychic vision is actually going to be stronger and you're going to be more clairvoyant. If you tend to have throat problems, throat chakra issues, then you're more likely to have a weaker lymphatic system as well. You're going to be more susceptible to colds and flus and also nutritional deficiencies. So you really need to be paying close attention to your intake of vitamins and minerals, because maybe your body flushes out vitamins and minerals faster and more quickly than most normal people. So yes, part of cultivation of your personal chi, if you have throat issues and throat chakra issues, then you do need to pay attention to your vitamin and mineral intake as part of cultivating your personal chi. Fun psycho-spiritual fact about people who tend to have throat issues and throat chakra issues and lymphatic concerns: you're probably better at channeling the gods, strong mediumship abilities, physiologically built for shamanism, and so on. Isn't that interesting? The gods and spirits are speaking through you, so through your voice, so that potent energy constantly surging and coursing through your body will weaken your throat chakra and weaken your physical throat area and your lymphatic system. Finally, we believe that your birth astrology can tell a lot about your health tendencies. And so you want to look at your birth astrology for diagnoses on how to best cultivate your personal chi. See, the thing is, in Eastern esotericism, we believe that everything is connected. So there's no focusing on one issue or concern that you're having to the neglect of everything else. Every form of solution is always holistic, to the point where I say it has to be about lifestyle. It always boils down to lifestyle at some point. Strengthening your personal chi or life essence has to be about changing your lifestyle. You know how professional tarot readers talk about self-care? That's just 21st century vocabulary for strengthening your personal chi. Okay, like if you're an Olympic swimmer, right, your diet and caloric intake every day has to be a certain rather out of the ordinary level, right, to accommodate for your very out of the ordinary practices and lifestyle. If you're a professional tarot reader or you're involved in spiritual practices, then I'm sorry, that's an out of the ordinary lifestyle. So you are constantly exhausting your psychic senses. In Eastern philosophy, we believe holistically that there is going to be a physiological equivalent to what you're spiritually and psychically exhausting out of you. So it will take a physical toll on your body if you don't replenish your personal chi, your life force. Exhaustive amounts of divinatory work, occult, esoteric practices, ritual practice, ceremonial, like occultist stuff, can actually weaken your immune system. It can weaken your respiratory system and so on. So you do want to cultivate your personal chi and counteract what you're depleting from your system. There's a belief that those more closely tied to the spirit world beyond the veil are also more susceptible to physical health issues because their bodies get weakened by that intense intake of spirit energy. I don't know if I'm explaining this right, but look, I'm just a girl on the internet. Don't listen to me. All of this rambling was my attempt to get to a point, and that is, I'm sorry, I cannot prescribe this one-size-fits-all sort of lifestyle practice for you without knowing one goddamn thing about who you are. Anyone who says to you, oh, everybody just do X, Y, and Z and you'll become all-powerful is full of shit. To truly cultivate your personal chi, someone diagnosing you and giving you a prescription of exercises, diet, and what you really need to do to amp up your life force would have to know what's important to you, what your daily lifestyle is like, your occupation, your health history, your family spirit history. Like, there's so much to it that I can't make like just this 10-minute video and say, oh, you do A, B, and C, and you can strengthen your personal life force. But true to a Bell Chimes In, let me talk about myself. Here's what I do. I know that I'm yin dominant and yang weak, so I eat more food types that strengthen my yang weakness. So the problem is I also cook for my husband James, and he's yang dominant and he's yin weak. So I really have to think about how I cook for our meals and which dish to, for example, put straight in front of him on the dinner table, like literally physically put it in front of him, so he'll eat more of that because that's more palatable to his body constitution. And the foods that are not as palatable to his body constitution are more for me, I'll actually like literally put it farther away from him, so he has to reach across, and he's more lazy, so he's not going to do it. And I mean, I do think about all of that in terms of making sure we're cultivating chi as part of our lifestyle, and that begins with diet. Food, nutritional health, and diet is a big part of how I looked into strengthening my personal chi. For me, it always has to start with food, because you can do the most advanced qigong in the world, but if your diet is shit, you chain smoke and you drink yourself to oblivion, and you're a pessimistic, negative piece of shit, you're just not going to be effectively strengthening your personal chi. Oh yeah, we also believe karma is part of strengthening personal chi or your life force, but it's not a simple direct equivalence. So it's not like you do good, you're stronger, do bad, you're weaker. Like, no, that's just not how it works. But having a very energized, positive outlook on life, being more optimistic, believing in the best of people does tend to help give you stronger personal chi. When you're very pessimistic, cynical, think the worst of people, think the worst is always going to happen to you, then you are actually mentally weakening and damaging your own chi, your own life essence. And once again, I can't stress enough that you cannot look at just one single aspect of someone's lifestyle and then diagnose. You really have to look across the board laterally, because maybe something else they do in some other area of their life is making up for the weakness or omission in one part of their life. You know what I'm saying? So you always have to look at the bigger picture, account for everything or as much as you can in that person's lifestyle, personality, and even their birth chart. Feng Shui matters, or in more mundane terms, your environment. If you're saying you want to cultivate stronger personal life force and you're neglecting how your home looks, then at least in terms of Eastern metaphysics, you're definitely not trying your best at cultivating personal chi. Even with Feng Shui, every Feng Shui master begins by asking you for your birth details. When they meet you in person, they're also looking you up and down, observing how you behave, observing your personality, and making judgment calls. No offense. But yeah, it's not necessarily in a judgy kind of way, but it is to help them make Feng Shui prescriptions. Every Feng Shui master I know also knows a little bit about like every other metaphysical practice. Like they know a little bit about astrology, they know a little bit about traditional Chinese medicine, and all of that factors into how they prescribe the Feng Shui arrangements for you. I'm also a very strong proponent of you already know what you need to do. You do. You know what you need to eat to balance out your nutritional intake. You know what the feng shui of your house has to be in terms of yin and yang and elemental balances. Even if you've never studied feng shui and don't know a goddamn thing about it, you already know on some intuitive level what your home needs to be like in order for you to be at your strongest. Being intuitive, self-aware, and very honest with yourself. You just need to look at what your likes and dislikes are, your predilections. What does your intuition nudge you toward arranging in your home? That's the intuitive concept of feng shui that I think people all have internalized inside of them, that they just need to reach for and trust. So I always say that yes, feng shui is a science, but the intuition for the science is something we all possess. Study of the science just gives you a more precise set of vocabulary, and it helps you to be more accurate and more specific. That's it. I think also there are a ton of parallels between intuitive eating and TCM, or traditional Chinese medicine. Pregnant women, for example, have a real knack for knowing what nutritional intake they need and what their baby needs just based on what they're craving. It's totally uncanny. The answer I'm giving here to a question that was presented to me on several occasions, what do you do to strengthen your personal chi? This is probably not the answer that you're going to feel satisfied about or the answer you're looking for. I do know that. But I would almost argue arrogantly that this is the best answer. We have a tendency, it's part of the human mental condition, to want to be told what to do. Admit it or not, you want me to literally give you a laundry list of X, Y, and Z. You do this, you do that, you do that, and right now everything will be fine. Subconsciously, you, or maybe consciously, you want a diagnosis from your physician with that little piece of prescription paper with a written down drug that you can just take and everything will be fine. You want me to simplify your life and reduce it down to this one-dimensional stated solution for all of your troubles. It's just not that simple, at least in accordance with Chinese philosophy. It's always complicated, always. So you want to strengthen your personal life force. Sure, there are advanced modalities of Qigong I could try to show you. I can ignore reality and tell you to meditate 3 hours a day. You're never going to do that, but what do I care? I get to walk away looking smart and wise and super spiritual. The mundane and yet still very complex reality is that cultivation of personal chi, especially if you're a metaphysical practitioner who expends a lot of that chi in your esoteric work, begins with really the simplest things. Take the tarot and shadow work course I offer. Figure out which element you lack or which element you want to strengthen for yourself, and then follow the course guide for the really, really easy, like ridiculously simple Qigong exercises to do on the daily. It begins with just asking you to do 60 seconds a day. That's it, a whole effing minute. And when you have that embedded into your habit, you can slowly, slowly build up. The thing is, it really can be that simple. Taking 60 seconds a day to just balance your internal qi, control the flow of qi, learn how to feel it, learn how to control, channel, and direct it to where you want it to go. And physiologically and emotionally, you can learn to control and direct all parts of yourself. It's really, really that simple. Funny that I linked the course to the concept of shadow work because, like I said, cultivation of personal qi and strengthening it is linked to knowing your own weaknesses and vices. That's Shadow Work 101. And what the heck is the point of doing shadow work for a practitioner? It's to strengthen the practitioner's pool of power to draw from. So to recap, for me, to strengthen my qi, my life force, to do the esoteric work that I do, I, one, really, really care about my diet, but not in the way you might think. I do not believe in deprivation diets. I'm very much an intuitive eater, and I have no problems indulging in foods typically thought of as bad for your health, but always, always in moderation, obviously. I like to approach cooking as an art, as something that is fun and creative, and it's a form of my own creative expression, something that I get excited about. So cooking meals with a lot of color and vibrancy and personality just instinctively translates to healthier foods, foods that my body needs. Sure, there are some foods medically considered bad for you, but a little bit every once in a while, indulging, I believe it nourishes your soul. Comfort foods, and that's totally part of me strengthening my personal qi. Ooh, but just to be clear, it's a fine-tuned balance. A lot of foods we do consider medically bad for you, they do weaken your personal qi and thus weaken your emotional wellness and, of course, also your physical health and your psychic and spiritual abilities too. So just to be clear, it's definitely a macroscopic, holistic balancing act. Another thing I do every morning and every single night, I do take about 15 minutes, sometimes even less than that, just to ground and center myself and be completely alone, focus on my breath. And I take this time to, it's kind of like prayer actually. I take a private moment to talk to my gods, ancestors, to acknowledge the spirit presence in my own house, check in on them, make sure everybody is happy. And I also take a moment to listen to my own body. I scan my own system and listen to what my body and my emotions are saying to me. And yeah, they do talk. I also, okay, call me crazy. I also apologize to my body. I have a strenuous schedule. I really do. And I always push my body and my mental capacity to its limits all of the time. In fact, I take myself to my own limits all the time, and then I push myself over the edge. I push myself farther than my own limits. And so I do need to take the time out on a daily basis to say sorry and to apologize to myself. Finally, the most important way I strengthen my personal qi, and I want to make it abundantly clear it's not for everyone, but for me, it's definitely part of the prescription, and that's just to be good. I try, keyword try, I try to trust people. I try to invest a lot of faith outward, but that's not to say it doesn't betray me or come back to bite me in the ass. People are going to be people, but I still try really hard to be very positive and trusting and just full of faith, no matter what my experiences might be. See, aside from conversations about karma, there's also this esoteric belief that a human who is extraordinarily faithful or extraordinarily kind or virtuous stirs the hearts of the gods. And so the gods are going to pay closer attention. I mean, we're definitely running into the territory of religious beliefs here. But yeah, that's totally the other part of it. Religious faith gives me strength. It is absolutely part of my strengthening practices for cultivating personal chi or life force. If you are a practitioner of any esoteric or metaphysical craft, you do need to be investing a lot of thought and doing exercises that improve that pool of life force of yours. Just think, professional singers who take their voices to the limits have to constantly be mindful of exercises and lifestyle practices to take care of their voice. What makes a practitioner of the craft think that he or she would be any different?
If this topic is of interest to you, then be sure to read the companion blog post linked in the video description box. I get into instructional details and specifics beyond what I talked about here.